Hey there, Ihor.
Hello, guys.
Welcome. How you doing?
Actually, great, but it's only a few hours till the Monday starts, so I believe that's probably the toughest part of the weekend.
Yeah, I'm so sorry with all the time zone differences, but really, genuinely, hey,
That's
we
okay.
super appreciate you being here. Absolutely.
That's okay. That's even better when I had experience joining like 3 a.m. my time, so that was not that good.
Yeah, nice and alert over there. Well, I hope you've got some coffee and you're ready to go, man.
Yeah.
Ihor, what do you got planned for us today? I understand some AWS stuff. Tell us more.
Actually, yes, because AWS WAF, it's something that like WAF, okay, we have WAF, it seems that it can help us to actually somehow protect our resources, but not everyone knows how to deal with it when you have not only just one instance, but actually 10, 15 and more, and actually how to transform them into not something that you should monitor and spend your resources, and instead by actionable, like in detect and respond resource. So this presentation was first mentioned on the AWS, the Safe Room stream, and actually I am happy to share my knowledge with the community because since that time I added a lot of new features, and even with all the things that we have now, like Mythos and so on, lawyer defense and defensive depths still actually works, and that's why one more lawyer like WAF can be helpful.
That's awesome, man. And tell me if I'm wrong or not, but I thought I read somewhere in one of the social posts, like this is something that is done at work, right? Like this is a service that you also manage? Like, is this something delivered to the customer in some shape or form?
Because
Awesome.
when customer reach out to me, because I work as both penetration tester and security engineer, and when customer reach out to us, so they do not have required expertise to build a WAF from scratch, because when you just put some rules, you enable them in block mode. That probably the first mistake when your legitimate customers won't be able to access your website. That's how it happens actually most of the times, and we are here to help them to manage all this stuff and actually to do this in the right way, because every step matters, and actually you should go this step by step.
That's awesome, man. Very, very cool to hear. Well, do you need to share your screen? Are you just going to go and are you going to talk? Do you have something to show? How do you want to do this?
Actually, yeah, I probably share my screen. I have a shortened version of my presentation because like full version will be available in the workshop files, and every participant will be able to actually access the presentation, like set the theoretical background that then go through lessons, through labs. But here I would probably do like a short presentation and later show how it works, like a complete setup in AWS account. I like specifically dedicated an account that can be dropped right after the presentation, because
Yeah,
all these OSINT stuff and actually tries that are now can be easily automated. You should keep it in mind as well.
absolutely. Cool, man. Well, go ahead and share your screen and we will test to make sure that it's all functional. And then we're going to hand you the room.
Yes, so probably now
Let's take a
you
look.
should be able to see it.
Good to go. Anything else you need from us, Ihor, then?
No, let's make this happen.
Thanks again for coming on, man. We're going to pop off.
Yeah, great. So hello guys, today I would like to present like a talk on how to transform your AWS WAF instance into something that works like 24/7 and actually not only bring you like some protection, but also bring you useful intelligence, can work as an engagement option for your team to better like be involved into security processes on the project, and actually what can be done with WAF in order to scale monitoring. Because when you have like tools like WAF, probably one of the pitfalls is to how to manage them on scale. And actually with my team, in my experience, we invented a way when we faced the similar issue, and that's why I wanted to share it with you. So probably let's start. Just a few words about myself. I am a lead security engineer and penetration tester at a company called TechMagic, with previous experience in test automation, security testing automation. I also AWS community builder in security category. I am contributor to some OWASP projects, also a speaker. I always like to share my knowledge with the community because probably the best way to learn something is to teach another person how this works. I often take part in CTFs, in different competitions, also publish articles in my Medium and so on. All the resources will be available, so you will have an opportunity to browse and actually pick something that can be interesting for you. So now probably let's jump to the agenda for this presentation. We will just have a review of what is AWS WAF actually, for some of you that probably may have not so much experience with it. Then we will talk about how to set up AWS WAF on your project from scratch, because there are a lot of common pitfalls, and actually it is important to know how we should done it in the right way, and actually what can be like wrong way, what can be steps that will probably cause issues within your legitimate traffic, and actually that's is what we definitely aren't going to achieve. Then we will talk about solutions that helps you to set up AWS WAF from scratch when you don't have enough expertise, but you need protection. It is security automations for AWS WAF. And last but not the least, we will talk about what to do with situation when you have multiple AWS WAF instances. You have not so many security folks in the team that can work with them, and actually how to transform all of these into one powerful system that can bring you a lot of insights, a lot of details about the threats that your workload is facing, and actually what to do with them, like blacklisting and so on. So let's start probably with basic stuff. It is what is AWS WAF. So AWS WAF, it is a managed web application firewall service that can help you to protect your application workloads, whether it is like some web application, it is API endpoint. It helps you to work with geolocation blocking, with like some common attacks like XSS injection, like SQL injection, like different bots and so on. It also helps you to prevent account takeover, fraud, and actually more complex flows when set up in the right way. And actually, if we are talking about some resources that can be protected with AWS WAF, there are plenty of them. You can actually read more about this in the workshop lessons. Also, we have the documents that can be shared. But usually, if you are talking about what works usually in terms of working with clients, it is Amazon CloudFront distribution, it is Amazon API gateway REST endpoint, and actually it is application load balancer, because usually also Amazon Cognito, because usually all these services are connected to real workloads. For example, it can be in situ instance, it can be some Lambda function, and actually they use it as a first point of protection, and actually point in your workload that handles the traffic. That's why WAF can be easily connected to these resources. If you're talking about, so what can we do using AWS WAF, because we know like shared responsibility model and all that stuff, but let's talk about common use cases. So first of all, I mentioned that it can be protection from common web attacks like OWASP top 10. Also, we are talking about API security, because due to the different reasons, especially if you're talking about modern workloads where we have LLM and all that stuff, rate limiting can be actually valuable protection method that helps you to not like overspend your budget, not hit the limits, especially when using third-party providers. Also, it helps to block some like reconnaissance attempts, invalid HTTP methods. It helps to protect endpoints that are sensitive, like login register endpoint, forgot password, gather some additional analytics. It helps to deal with bots, because with the help of AI, we see a rise of attacks that are caused by, and actually not only caused, but also orchestrated by automated systems. We are talking about denial of service and flood protection, but if you are talking about like complete denial of service protection and distributed denial of service, then AWS have a dedicated resource. It is AWS Shield, and actually it is like dedicated resource to deal with those stuff. But WAF can also be helpful in terms of preventing rate-based attacks, HTTP flood, and actually some extra checks and extra attack methods that are usually used by malicious actors. When we are also talking about such thing as compliance, because some of you probably know all this stuff, like you should implement a lot of things in your SDLC to be compliant with PCI DSS, ISO 27001, SOC 2, Type 1, Type 2, and all that stuff. Actually, when auditors come to you, they actually usually ask about how do you protect your resources, how do you manage evidence, and WAF makes it a lot easier, especially when we are talking about the fact that it is compliant and can be aligned with CIS, Center of Internet Security benchmark. So it simplifies a lot of steps then and actually cases areas that are usually covered by auditors. Also, we are talking about cost-aware deployment because FinOps practices and in general cost-aware development are important not only in terms of security but in terms of AI engineering and so on. So WAF is not an exception, and here we also have practices and limits that we should be aware of, that we should keep in mind in order to make this service as much useful as possible. Now, a bit about capacity units. It is probably one of the terms that you should remember. It defines the, let's say, budget for your web ACL. Web ACL, think of it as your sandbox for your all AWS WAF rules. So they live in web ACL. And by default, your rules can hit a limit of like 1,500 capacity units. It consists of rules and different rule types that you use. But if you have probably a large workload and you definitely need to use more capacity units, you need to add more rules, then you can extend this limit, but it will also cost you more. Detailed review of all these things you can find in lessons. Now let's talk about key facts to remember. If you're using JSON body inspection, it doubles the capacity units that are used by this rule. The same goes for like our similar situation we have for all query parameters and each text transformation. They also can add and increase usage of capacity units of your WAF instance, and that's why you should be careful with how do you manage your rules, what are the structure of your rules, because every like copy paste can end up with reaching and hitting your capacity units limit, and it will cost you more. If you are talking about sample architecture, as I mentioned, one of the things that is commonly used with AWS WAF, it is application load balancer. It is positioned in front of EC2 instances like ECS tasks, maybe some Lambda functions, and actually WAF helps to filter this traffic that is coming to our system, to detect some malicious patterns, even block them, block or count, you decide what should be done. And actually it also helps to gather useful analytics, because this analytics is your key to successful investigation and to successful reaction to any harmful actions against your workload. So if you are talking about where to start, imagine that it is your first day on the project, you are a new DevSecOps or security engineer, and client faced with a situation when someone tries to attack their workload. Because of these, legitimate customers are affected, they cannot access the website, their accounts are under risk, and it's obviously a critical issue that should be resolved. If you are talking about costs, then we pay $5 per one web ACL. As you remember, web ACL is our sandbox for AWS WAF rules. Then every rule adds $1 per month. And if you're talking about analyzing requests, then you pay 60 cents for 1 million requests. If you're talking about inspection up to 1500 capacity units and default body size. But you can be additionally charged all the references and all the calculations you can do with AWS pricing calculator, or actually using official AWS resources, because as I mentioned, costs are an important part of everything we do in a cloud, and that's why it is important to control this aspect as well. If you are talking about rules, here you have like a flexible approach, because you can make your own rules if you have enough expertise. But I believe that nowadays, when we have access to different LLMs, when we have like a lot of references, guides, how to make it, it is not that hard. It is not a rocket science. You can make your own rules based on your specific needs, even with the help of LLM. Actually, Claude works with this well, GPT. And we have an option to get AWS Managed and custom rules. Custom rules are often delivered in packaged format. So you purchase one package that contains a lot of rules, but in this case, you should remember one thing. It is a black box. So in case it won't work for your specific workload, then probably you will waste money and won't achieve some actually desired result. That's why in many cases, the combination of two probably works well, depending on your case, amount of resources that you can dedicate to development of custom AWS WAF rules, and actually expertise inside the team. If you are talking about actually what makes an efficient AWS WAF rule, then we should keep in mind several factors. First of all, it is like precision. We should avoid, where possible, analyzing all query parameters, all headers, and so on. So it is better to be aware about common attacks that your workload may face, conduct some threat modeling session to analyze your traffic, to understand who is your customer, who is potential threat actor. And based on this, you will actually be better prepared to make rules that won't use all your capacity units. Instead, you will work on the rules that actually are specific, are easy to manage, and do not duplicate each other in some parts. If you are talking about geographical limitation, that's something that actually probably one of the most easier to implement, but it has a great effect on the monitored traffic, and actually it can help you to block some attacks right away. Of course, it won't stop motivated attackers, but at least you can reject some automated attacks and you can stop some script kiddies. One important probably rule to remember that goes first, it is test with samplet requests. Also, like test with traffic that is expected to be handled by your application to ensure that new WAF rules do not block anything. If you're talking about rule structure, from my own experience, you can use visual interface to add simple rules, but in most cases, you should add like clear structure and exceptions. And all these exceptions are possible thanks to nesting. You can nest different statements, combine them via logical and logical or not. Also, when you are working with rules like rate limiting and rate based rules, you can use scope down statements, because they help you to exclude endpoints that are not, or traffic that is definitely not something that should be blocked and is safe for your application. And scope down statements have to combine the power of rate limiting rules together with exceptions that won't affect valid users. Also, avoid overlapping by redundant rules. No need to set up protection from everything. Start from something that you already know or you like threat model it, and you know that these attacks are likely to happen with your application. So start from these rules and block these attacks first. It will build your cornerstone, your foundation that will help you add new rules to analyze some traffic and some data, and these insights will help you to build more efficient rules later. No need to add, like, let's say 10 rules at once and then think what's happened and where your request, legitimate request from your customer, is blocked. Then think about priority. If you have definite limitations in terms of what geographical location can be used to access your applications, that put this rule first. No need to like add geo limitations, something in between, or actually as one of last rules, because it won't have an effect. And actually the same goes with blacklists. If you have a blacklist, then it is reasonable to put it somewhere on the top, so this request even won't reach more complex rules and you won't spend resources for inspecting this request. Labeling. Labeling is a powerful instrument that will help you a lot with combination of multiple rules. So you can label suspicious requests, and then you can later analyze them once again with dedicated rules that are working with those labeled requests. It helps you to build complex detection systems, and it helps you to build a strategy that is able to handle not just, let's say, burp suit scan, but something even more tricky, and actually something that cannot be easily detected by general WAF rules. Something similar to what I have already covered, it is always start with count, never block first. You should to be aware of traffic that goes through this rule, and you should to detect some exceptions that should be handled before this rule reaches production. Ideal case when you have a dedicated test environment and actually it is as close to production as possible, and you use this environment to test your rules first. Then, when you're sure that this rule won't block any legitimate traffic, the time is different. It can be 1 week, it can be 2 weeks, it can be 1 month. It depends on your current workflow and how it works. What are the stages? How do you release new things? How do you deploy something? But once you observed enough, once you're sure that valid traffic won't be blocked, it is probably a clear signal that you can move forward. Move forward in this case is meaning to like change action from count to block and obviously go to production. Because if you're talking about count mode, you can use it not only in testing, staging, but also in production, because it won't block anything, but it can bring you some useful analytics, because not always staging and testing environments, they are close enough to real production data. And when you have some QA engineers in place, they can generate from, for example, a lot of traffic during regression. But we do not expect this to happen on production. And that's why when you have a rule in count mode and you tested it enough, so it is able to filter and detect traffic that you are interested in, you can go and experiment with it in production, but in count mode. And only when you run it for certain period of time and you ensure that it works in the appropriate way, maybe there can be 1 or 2 requests that are blocked, maybe more, but no like critical blocking of legitimate traffic. Then you will be able to easily enable not count but block mode and start gaining real benefits from deploying this WAF rule. Actually, next thing, it is noise reduction. It is more about logging, because by default, if you're talking about logging, you have all these nice dashboards inside your AWS WAF. But you should also be aware of things that are not covered by these default instruments. And for this purpose, you can redirect your detected by WAF requests to CloudWatch, to Kinesis Data Firehose, to other systems. I usually use S3 buckets because you can set up object lifecycle, and it will save you some costs. Also, it is good enough for external auditors in terms of compliance, because You can always show what was like in 2 months ago, 6 months ago, and you can use all this data to feed in your like threat intelligence sources, maybe to add to your pipelines that actually build new rules, and obviously analyze with LLM to know what's to do next. And continuous testing is probably one of the most important facts, because when you are dealing with such system as WAF, only continuous improvement, only lessons learned can help you to improve and can help you to build new rules that are more efficient, that will help you to cover a lot more traffic. Also, your functionality probably changes, and you should take this into account as well. So continuous testing, continuous improvement, tracking false positives, it is the way that will help you to build efficient WAF system at scale. If you are talking about common pitfalls when starting with WAF, it is enabling block mode immediately, as I already mentioned, enabling all rules at once, ignoring capacity units budget, not filtering WAF logs when you just log all the requests, and it will generate massive cost not only in S3 but also in CloudWatch or any other system. For some rules like SQL injection and XSS, those are predefined match statements that are delivered and provided to you by AWS, but you should be aware that they are black box. So you cannot like discover what's happening inside. You just have the result. It is either matched these requests or no. And in order to avoid a large amount of false positives, be sure to set like SQL injection sensitivity to low, because when you set it to high, for sure you will have a lot of false positives, and this noisy rule probably in many cases will lead to a situation when you just disable it, and that's definitely not something that you want to achieve. Also, no IP allow lists, because in large teams, in large infrastructures, when you have multiple AWS accounts, when you have multiple testing systems, offices, there can be a situation when someone, let's say your QA team, just launched an automation script that do some security testing stuff as well. For example, for broken access control, common injections, and so on. If you do not allow list those IPs, then you risk their test to fail, and you risk to have impact on the team, and that's also not the case. So be sure to allow list IP addresses that are safe and are related to your infrastructure, to your offices, so no unexpected accidents will happen in the future. If you are talking about what to do if, okay, I do not know how to set up AWS WAF, but I need protection right now. So where can I go? And AWS has an answer for you. It is security automations for AWS WAF. Actually, literally, you can think of it as a pre-configured set of AWS WAF rules with all the required infrastructure, supporting infrastructure that can make your rules more efficient. What I am talking about? It includes easy to deploy pre-configured protection, usually deployed via AWS Cloud Formation template. You can review the complete solution features, details in one of the lessons, and also on the official AWS pages. They will be included into learning materials. It can be deployed and right away attached to Amazon CloudFront application load balancer and give you some immediate protection. Once deployed, it begins intercepting web requests, and if you leave the default state of these rules as is, it will actually block those threads. It combines comprehensive logging capabilities and monitoring as well, so it can bring you a lot of insights to decide where to go next. When we take a look at infrastructure, about architecture diagram of this solution, we can see a lot of components. Central component, it is our AWS WAF instance. It is our web ACL. There we have AWS managed rules, allow list, deny list, SQL injection protection, XSS, HTTP flat, and some other rules, as well as bad bot protection. Then we have additional infrastructure. It is AWS Lambda that updates your reputation lists on hourly basis. It uses external threat intelligence services and is quite powerful because it helps you to work and detect threats that are already known to threat researching communities. It also helps to analyze your access logs. Access logs means when you configure application load balancer or Amazon CloudFront, you can also log all the access requests to this resource in, let's say, S3 bucket. And when you connect this S3 bucket to a dedicated AWS Lambda functions that is deployed together with this solution and it can be enabled, you receive additional level of protection. And it helps you to analyze IP addresses that cause a lot of internal server errors, a lot of batch request errors, and you can use this data to actually block those IP addresses and do not allow them to reach your workload. There is also something that goes as extra, but probably I won't stop on this in scope of this demo. Let's probably go to the pricing overview, because as you know, pricing is one of the cornerstone of every solution, and actually solution itself is free, but you pay for the AWS services it provisions. So be careful when configuring this stuff. First of all, if you're talking about Web ACL, still $5 per month per Web ACL. Then we have rule groups, $1 per month per one rule. Then we have inspection costs for 1 million of requests that are processed. Then we have managed rule groups. For bot control, it is $10 per month. Actually, if you need some other managed rule groups, because after deployment, you can customize this solution. You can add another managed rule groups that are offered by AWS and its partners. So also, those parts with Kinesis Firehose, with Lambda, Athena, and so on, they are optional. If you do not need these scanners and detection, like props method and part of infrastructure, you can just disable it and not use in your deployment. That also works. And to be honest, I would recommend you to disable this part from the start, because later, from my own experience, it is better to develop your own rules to detect malicious activities that actually do not match existing patterns and existing rules. You can set it in code mode and use it as your threat intelligence feed, because you can store those requests, you can analyze them via different sources. You can connect your LLM to it, and actually this rule will work as a source of further improvement for your AWS WAF. So yeah, if you're talking about default stuff, let's say it is probably like this one, scanner and prop Athena log parser enabled. You can just disable it and go with your own rule instead. It will save you some money, and actually it actually won't affect your deployment a lot. Now let's talk about monitoring of your WAF instance. When you have only one AWS WAF instance, everything works good. You have one WAF instance, you go to it on periodic basis. By default, samplet requests from AWS are available for the last 3 hours. But what happens when you have a lot of these instances to monitor? That's actually a question that raised to me several years ago, and I decided, what can I do with all this stuff? Because I need to monitor several AWS WAF accounts. I need to do this 24/7, and obviously I cannot work like entire year 24/7. So I decided what can be done in this case. And actually, if you're talking about standards metrics, as I mentioned previously, you can access samplet requests for the last 3 hours. You have some CloudWatch metrics. You can set up alarms. You can have dedicated dashboard per rules, but it was not enough in my case. That's why actually I managed to develop own solution. It is called WAF Monitoring Lambda. And actually, what is key features of these solutions? First of all, it analyzes your AWS WAF logs and produces regular analytics to your team. These analytics can be customized. So I provide an open source general solution, and then you can modify it according to your needs. Thanks with the help of Cloud Code and so on, it is possible and accessible to many teams now. It produces also daily analytics. So obviously, during the night, you probably want to sleep. So once you actually wake up, you want to review what's happened during the last night, last weekend, and so on. And Lambda can help you with these tasks and produce daily analytics reports of what IP addresses were blocked, how many traffic from different IP addresses arrived, what was this traffic. Also, it can send analytics to Slack because Slack is the messenger that used by many teams, and you can customize it to use email and other communication channels. Slack was just my preference back these days. And actually, it uses not just worker threads for parallel processing. So Lambda won't last a lot of time. It has timeout in most cases. In my experience, it was like 3 minutes, and it was enough to process even hundreds of thousands of requests. Then it significantly reduced the amount of time required to maintain your WAF, because you get a structured analytics and a snapshot of the main points to review. You don't need to go through every request, analyze all these fields, and try to construct them together in your head. And it also capable of blocking, automatically blacklisting malicious IP addresses for the defined period of time. If you're talking about solution actually itself from the architectural perspective, then we have our AWS WAF, we have AWS Amazon S3 bucket for storing our logs, we have our Lambda that is able to communicate and manage IP sets that we use for blacklisting, whitelisting. It also sends some analytic to Slack, logs all the things that happened to CloudWatch, so you can always monitor if your Lambda is healthy, or if there are any issues that you should take care of, and event bridge rules to run all this stuff. It is an just example message that you can receive, but as I mentioned, you can customize it according to your needs. In this case, I used like 3 additional threat intelligence sources. It is Abuse API DB, it is Threatbook Info, and Virus Total for analyzing the captured IP address and some information on requested URLs by this address, top payloads, and what was rule action for this specific IP and this specific rule. Now, if you're talking about pricing, and it is one of the things that I like the most, because this solution is pretty cheap, because for like mentioned here configurations, that was more than enough for me on all the projects that I worked with. Actually, it costs you up to even less than $2 per month, maybe even up to $10, but it saves you a lot more. If you're talking about human resources required to monitor all this stuff, and actually required to blacklist malicious IP addresses as soon as they arrive. So probably one more thing before I go to the demo. It is about cost-effective AWS WAF strategies and key things to remember. You will also meet them in the resources, like lessons, labs, but I will briefly manage them here as well. It is to optimize your log volume. We already discussed it. No need to store all the requests. You can store something that is most important to you. It helps you to save up to 90% on your firewalls and actually 3 costs. Then manage your capacity units budget. There is no final point for improvement. You still can review your rules. You still can change its structure according to what you gathered over the last time, and in this way limit your capacity units budget, lower it, and actually have a lot more opportunities. If you are talking about analysis, just in my case, Lambda works better, especially connected with S3 bucket, and actually that is a solution that helps you to save a lot of time. Also, try to keep one web ACL per region and associate with multiple resources. It is not always possible, because when you have CloudFront and when you have some original API gateway endpoint, and you need to it to be accessible in Europe, then you won't be able to have only one web ACL for the both of them. But when possible and you deploy in North Virginia, that can be an option. Also use lifecycle policy management to cut costs and actually use your S3 bucket more efficiently, and use infrastructure as a code for rules management. It is actionable way on how to track changes to your rules, how to iterate over the improvements, and how to keep things on track using GitHub or any similar version control system. This more about how to integrate WAF into DevSecOps processes. So in general, as I mentioned, automated testing, a rule version control, CI/CD WAF deployment. So it is structured. It is like it is always easy to check. It is always easy to debug. It is predictable. AI-assisted rule review, because actually now it is a thing that will help you a lot. Infrastructure as a code for WAF rules, and observability as code. Define your alarms and deliverables in infrastructure as a code. So for every new account, you will be able to easily deploy all that stuff. Additional resources that will help you to start work with all these things. And probably, yeah, that's it for the part of presentation. Now let's move to the actual demo. The same setup you will have in your lab. So actually, what we have here. Actually, we will have CloudFront distribution that is used to deploy some sample websites that I wipe coded. Let's think of it as some sample cloud security block. Actually, it is just single page application, no some interacting stuff, search and so on, but it is more than enough for the demo and for showcase how WAF works. So, okay, we have our CloudFront distribution. Now, let's see how it works on the WAF site itself. We have IP sets, one IP set for allow list. As you remember, you should always gather a list of IP addresses that should be allow listed, and they should not be blocked by your WAF distribution. Also, WAF monitoring Lambda block list. This block list Lambda will use for actually adding IP addresses that are malicious and should be blocked by the solution. And we have our web ACL. It is our sandboxes for rules. Let's briefly overview how it works under the hood. We have allow my IPs. It is like top priority rules, because if this IP should be whitelisted, no need to process it later in the cycle. Then we have auto block list, the same logic, but in reverse order. If this IP is malicious, no need to work on it further with other AWS WAF rules. And we have sample access protection rule. As you can see, capacity units cost for this rule is noticeably higher than other. And for the AWS WAF, that's it. You can manage your resources that are connected to this particular WAF web ACL. When you attach multiple resources, the processing can actually linkage of resources to your WAF instance can take some time, so just remember it. And if you're talking about dashboard, it is your central point of view on what's happening, actually, what are the insights. You can also review from what countries someone tries to access your workloads, and some other analytics, as well as samplet requests. But you should keep in mind that actually it will not work well when you have issues with, let's say, some instances that probably won't go well, and as I mentioned, only last 3 hours. You won't be able to view more. Then let's talk about the Lambda itself. Just a quick overview. So we have event bridge rules connected to our Lambda function. The solution itself is open source, so you will be able to access it via GitHub clone and just use it. And yeah, all the points regarding configuration, regarding how to start working with your Lambda, how to set up it from scratch, you can use it directly on the labs. And I hope you enjoy this. Anyway, I actually added my LinkedIn and other communication channels. So in case of any issues, you can reach out to me and I will be happy to answer questions as soon as I can. And here, probably not a like full demo, but you will hopefully enjoy it on the lab part. And yeah, that's probably it from my side for today. And now I'm ready to view some questions and answer them. Yeah, so one of the questions was by not logging all requests, doesn't it make investigations difficult when you are trying to identify known threat actors accessing your site? Actually, it depends, but as I mentioned, you can add a dedicated tool that will be your threat intelligence source. It will be in count mode, so it won't block any requests, but it will work instead of these allow requests logging and filtering. So you will be able to add some custom criteria and use this rule for analytics. And from my own experience, actually it works well. So no need to enable logging of all requests because it will produce you a large amount of different logs, different requests, but with no real value. So just by adding a dedicated rule on in count mode on threat intelligence purpose works well. Then geo-blocking can often be incorrect. How do you improve or compensate for it? As I mentioned, scope down statements. If you are pretty sure that this particular request should not be blocked, by enabling your rule in count mode first, you will be able to detect that something goes in a wrong way. And by adding scope down statements, you will be able to fix this thing. Also, connected and combined together with labels, you can just label this request. No need to block it right away. If you are not 100% certain that it is malicious and it should be blocked by default. So you can combine labeling and further processing by another rules. And in this way, your rule will be narrow to specific use cases, and actually you won't block malicious traffic. That's how it works. And in my experience, I often use this approach because in most cases, unfortunately, you cannot strictly define a list of countries that should be blocked. And also we should remember that VPN and all that stuff make it less effective because your attacker can just change IP address via VPN and that's it. They still can access and attack your resource, and geo-blocking won't help in this case. So a combination of different approaches will work and help you to compensate for it. And yep, I believe that's it for as of now, at least.
I like how you say that you believe that's it. That was not it. That was packed, Ihor. That was a huge, huge presentation. Very knowledgeable, man. Clearly, you have some experience. You've been doing this for a number of years, I can tell. Thank you so much, man, for putting that together. Yeah, I was about to say, perfect, John. Thank you for sharing the screen to show the workshop.
Just to add a little bit of extra visuals. Hey, if folks were super duper curious, really wanted to help shine a spotlight on, look, you can jump in and play with this just as well. All of the workshop that you have prepared here, Ihor, is fantastic and phenomenal to, hey, still have the video representation of kind of what you've covered through this, some good insights and resources with the PDF files there that folks can download, and really being able to actually play with this all inside of the AWS environment. So phenomenal stuff. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
I think we also had one more question, Ihor, as well, too. So AWS WAF versus others. So you're really big on the AWS side, but I guess the question's asking, what about others? Do you have an opinion on other infrastructure and other platforms?
Actually, I believe that this approach with Lambda works on any platforms, whether it is GCP, whether it is Azure, because as we know, cloud services across different providers, they are connected. So you still have WAF, but in GCP, it can work slightly in a different way. And there we have cloud function, but still we operate with WAF. So you can reproduce the same infrastructure in other providers, and that's not something that should stop you from using this solution. I use WAF because actually it depends on the choice of my clients. But I had experience in deploying the same stuff in other providers, mostly in GCP, and it works well. Especially now when you have access to LLMs, Cloud Code, and all that stuff, you can easily rewrite your Lambda to work with other providers, and that's it. If you are talking about like specific preferences, I tend to use services that are native for the specific cloud, because you have all X actually in one box. You don't need to research for another solution. Yeah, you can purchase some commercial solution and connect it to your system, but you can lose some visibility. You out of like this shared responsibility that cloud providers give to you. And actually, that's something that works best when you have everything connected together, and that's why native solutions work well. But as I said, you always can customize it and connect to GCP or Azure.
Cool. Cross methodology over there. Thank you. Ihor, I had a question for you too, because I even saw some people in chat, right? So someone's saying outside of their wheelhouse, but they're really excited about it. What do you have to maybe share with newcomers? So this is a pretty interesting area in cybersecurity and IT. If someone just want to get started on the infrastructure side in AWS cloud infrastructure, what would you recommend? Like how could they get started?
Actually, in my Medium, I have a dedicated article on where to start for cloud practitioners, and actually there you can access all the resources. Also, you can follow my blog in LinkedIn, and you can access some stuff there as well. I will probably try to find this stuff now. Maybe it will be possible. If not, by using this like link tree that I provided, you can access all my Medium. Yeah, that's it. Learning path for cloud security specialists, and it covers everything because even now with all these LLM era that we have, cloud security is still as important as previously, because now we have also this a big domain of private LLMs. And when you deploy something in your, let's say, AWS GCP, no matter which account, then you should secure it. And that's why DevSecOps specialists are also in demand, because you need a person that will walk through it and will be able to set up it in the right way. We still have a huge demand for these specialists, and that's why it is a great area to start and move forward.
I love that you have that written up, just ready to go to provide to students. Thank you, Ihor.
Yep.
Cool. Any other questions in the chat? Anything else you want to ask Ihor while we have him on stage? Very thorough presentation and a packed workshop.
Actually, it's a pleasure for me to be here, because I first heard about John during ContinuumCon in 2020. It was one of my first CTFs, and I am proud to be here as a speaker after several years, because I was involved in OWASP community on the regional level. I also contributed to some global products, and for me to share this experience with other people, to maybe cover some gaps that back then I wasn't able to access via community, then it's great, because the more people know how to secure those stuff, the less chances that someone will just steal your data and do something malicious.
Well, thank you for being here, Ihor. This was wonderful. You did a fantastic job. And hey, I really hope some folks do dive into that workshop. Thank you again and again.
Thank you very much, man.
Yeah. Thanks.
Cool.
Well, if you're all right with it, I guess we'll pull you off stage and we'll start to get ready and prepped for the next session, as we're keeping ContinuumCon, the conference that never ends, cruising. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Hope you
guys,
get a little bit of
thank
sleep
you.
too, man. After
Thank you a lot for making this conference, because it is an important initiative, and I believe that it should happen on annual basis, because a lot of people need to learn this, and that's a great initiative. So huge kudos, guys.
Excellent.
Appreciate it, man.
Take care.